My name is Yusuf, and for as long as I can remember, my life has been shaped, no, anchored, by the teachings of Islam. I was born into a family where faith wasn't just practiced, it was lived. It was in the way we greeted each other, in the rhythm of our days, in the very breath we took. My earliest memories were of hearing my father's gentle voice reciting the Quran at dawn, and of my mother whispering supplications as she tucked me into bed. I prayed 5 times a day, not out of habit, but with conviction. I bowed low on the prayer mat, forehead to the ground, believing that every word I uttered carried me closer to Allah. The mosque was more than a building. It was my refuge, my center, my sanctuary. As I grew older, I took pride in my devotion. I studied the Quran with discipline, memorized surahs, read the hadiths with hunger, and debated with friends about theological nuance like my life depended on it. Because, in a way, it did. To me, faith wasn't just personal. It was eternal insurance. My deeds, my fasts, my prayers, my modesty, they were deposits into a heavenly account I prayed would not be overdrawn on the day of judgment. But even in my discipline there were shadows. Quiet doubts, fleeting, forbidden thoughts I never dared to voice aloud. Sometimes, late at night, I'd lie awake and wonder, what if I'm not enough? What if all my striving, all my prayers, still fall short? I'd brush it off, tell myself it was just the whisperings of shaitan, but deep down I feared the scale, the mizan. I feared the weight of my sins against the lightness of my efforts. I respected other faiths, I studied them, I even debated Christians from time to time, confidently, passionately. The idea that Jesus was the Son of God, it baffled me. How could God have a son? And this thing they call grace, it sounded like cheating. Shouldn't salvation be earned? No, I believed with all my heart that Islam was the straight path, the most logical, structured, disciplined route to God. And yet, that quiet whisper of unease never left me. Not really. I didn't know it then, but everything I believed, everything I built my life upon, was about to be shaken. And it began with a pain in my chest. It started like any ordinary day. I had just returned to my hometown to visit family. The morning was filled with laughter, warm tea, and debates on theology with my younger brother, just like old times. After the Dur prayer, I felt a tightness in my chest, nothing sharp, just discomfort. I brushed it off, maybe gas, stress, fatigue. But by late afternoon, the pressure grew sharper, more insistent. It clawed at me like something beneath the surface was unraveling. Yusuf, we're going to the hospital. My brother's voice was firm. I shook my head, trying to dismiss the fear creeping into my veins. I'm fine, just indigestion. But I wasn't. By the time we reached the emergency room, I could barely speak. My breath was shallow, the lights blurred. Nurses rushed around me, inserting IVs, checking monitors, whispering terms I couldn't understand. Then the words hit me, like thunder in a storm. You're having a heart attack. A heart attack. I had always taken care of myself, ate clean, exercised, prayed. I wasn't supposed to be here. But the pain didn't care. It tightened like a vice around my chest. The world around me dimmed. I tried to focus on the Shahada, tried to cling to the one thing I believed would save me. La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah. My lips moved, barely. And then darkness. But it wasn't the kind of darkness you fear. It was quiet, still, endless. I expected to feel pain, to vanish, but instead I felt aware, still present. That's when I realized I wasn't in my body anymore. I was hovering, floating, watching. I looked down and saw myself lying on the hospital bed. Machines beeping, doctors panicked, my brother pale, hands trembling. And I felt nothing. No panic, no pain, just a strange calm, as if I was watching a movie I knew the ending to, but couldn't stop. I tried to speak, nothing. Tried to touch, nothing. I didn't even know if I had a body anymore. Am I dead? That question wrapped around my soul like cold mist. But this didn't look like judgment. There were no angels, no trumpet, no bridge, just me and a stillness. Until I saw it, a light, not from the room, not from the machines, but from beyond. It pulsed, alive, not harsh, not burning, but it reached into me, deep. It was not a sight, it was a presence. It didn't speak, but I heard it. It didn't move, but I felt it coming closer. I should have run, should have feared, but it called to me, not with sound, but with peace. I hesitated, but I couldn't resist. The light drew me in, like gravity from another world. And the moment I let go, the hospital, the machines, even my body, faded. I was being pulled, carried into something I could not understand, but somehow knew. This was not the end. This was only the beginning. The light consumed everything. But it didn't blind me. It wrapped around me, warmth, deep and infinite, not like the sun. No, this warmth reached deeper, into places I didn't know existed inside me. I was weightless, drifting, and then I saw him. At first, just a silhouette within the brilliance. A figure emerging from light itself. And then he stepped forward. His presence was unlike anything I had ever encountered. It wasn't just awe, it was love. Not human love, not emotional affection, but pure, unfiltered compassion. Like the very essence of existence embraced me. And he looked at me, and in his gaze I felt known, completely. My soul, with all its fears, doubts, sins, laid bare, but not judged, not condemned. Hell, who are you? I asked, or thought I did. Words felt distant here, unnecessary. He smiled. I am Jesus. I froze. Jesus? My mind rebelled. This wasn't possible. Jesus was a prophet, a great prophet, yes, but only a man. That's what I had always believed, what I had defended. You can't be, I whispered, barely. But he didn't argue. He just looked at me with patience that carried eternity. You have many questions, Yusuf, and I am here to help you find the answers. The light around us shifted, and then it began. Scenes appeared, floating, moving like breath on still water. I saw him healing the sick, touching the eyes of the blind, raising a child from death. I had read these stories, heard them debated, dismissed them as exaggerations, but now I saw the love in his touch, the authority in his voice. It was real. Then came the images I never believed. The Last Supper, the Garden of Gethsemane, the crucifixion, and I couldn't look away. Nails, blood, agony etched into his face. Yet beneath the pain, there was peace. He wasn't taken, he offered. He chose this. Why, I asked, my voice trembling like a child. Why did you endure this? Jesus looked at me, and in the stillness of forever, he answered. For you, for all of you. I broke. Everything I had believed, everything I had clung to, was unraveling. My faith had always been about striving, performing, proving. But here was the Son of God saying, it had never been about that. I gave my life, he said gently, so you wouldn't have to carry your sin alone. And then he showed me what I had missed. Verses I knew from the Quran, repeated, recited, revered, suddenly made sense in a way they never had. Prophecies, hints, pointers to a Messiah I had never truly seen. I felt like scales were falling from my eyes. I saw the thread connecting every sacred word I'd studied not to a religion, but to a person. To him. How could I have been so blind? I whispered. Jesus stepped closer. You were searching, Yusuf, he said, and now you've found what you were looking for. I cried, not because I felt defeated, but because, for the first time in my life, I felt free. There's more for you to see, Jesus said, and the moment he reached out his hand, the world shifted. The light around us seemed to breathe, expanding like a living thing. I felt it again, the pull, but this time not just of light, of destiny. I closed my eyes, or what felt like eyes, and the next moment I was somewhere else. Colors. I don't know how to describe them. They were not colors like we see on Earth. They were alive, singing, dancing across a sky I couldn't measure. There was no sun, yet everything was bathed in brilliance. No walls, no buildings, yet I felt safe. And the air, it wasn't just air. It was peace. I saw people, all kinds, different ages, languages, stories, but their faces glowed, not with light, with joy. And for a moment, just a moment, I thought, this is it. This is what I've been praying toward all my life. Jesus looked at me. This is heaven, he said. This is union with God. I couldn't speak. I wanted to stay. I wanted to run and fall at his feet and never return. But then he said something that pierced me deeper than anything before. This is not earned by deeds, Yusuf. It is a gift, given freely through faith. I staggered. A gift? But I had worked so hard, prayed, fasted, studied, struggled to be good enough. And now, you're saying I could never earn it? That I didn't have to? Grace, he whispered. A single word, but it echoed like thunder. No one can earn perfection. No one can live without sin. But I paid that price. So you could live free? I wanted to argue, to cling to control. But something in me, something proud, rigid, broke. And all that remained was gratitude. But just as peace filled me, everything changed. The light dimmed. The air thickened. The warmth fled. Jesus looked at me, his face solemn. I need to show you what separation looks like. And then the darkness. I heard them before I saw them. Cries, wails, so desperate, so hollow, they shook me. Then the shapes came. Figures, barely human, stumbling in a land where there was no light, their faces twisted with regret, their hands reaching toward a sky that didn't answer. Jesus spoke. This is hell, not a chamber of fire, not a pit of torment. This is the absence of God. I trembled. Wait, I asked, my voice barely more than breath. Why are they here? He didn't need to explain, I already knew. They had been offered love and chose pride. They had been offered grace and chose rules. They had been offered light and turned away. They chose separation, Jesus said, softly. And God never forces himself on anyone. I wanted to run, to scream, to save them, but I couldn't. All I could do was feel the weight of eternity, of choice, and of the fragile line that separates us all from one of two eternities. Jesus turned to me, his eyes still burning, not with fire, but with love. Do you understand now, Yusuf? I nodded through tears. The scale I had once feared so deeply was real. But not the way I thought. This wasn't about deeds. It was about relationship. With him. With the one who gave everything so I could have it all. And then he asked, will you accept my gift? I paused. Not because I doubted, but because I knew, once I said yes, I could never go back. Not to my old ways. Not to striving. Not to earning love. Only receiving it. And in a whisper that felt like thunder in eternity, I said, I trust you. When I opened my eyes, it wasn't heaven I saw. It was white walls, machines, voices calling my name, beeping, Hey, I was back in the hospital room. The sterile scent of antiseptic surrounded me. My chest burned, my throat was dry. The world was real. Again. But I was not the same. I blinked, disoriented. Faces hovered above me, doctors, nurses, my brother. "Yusuf," he cried. "You're awake." I wanted to speak. But words were too small. How could I tell him? Just moments ago, I had stood in glory, in love, in eternity. And now, I was here, trapped again, in a world too loud, too heavy. I stayed silent for hours. My family was relieved. They thought I was lucky to be alive. "It's a miracle," the doctor said. "We thought we'd lost him." I smiled faintly. They had no idea how right he was. But as the days passed, something began to grow inside me. A pressure, a calling, a fear. Because what I had seen, what I now knew, it demanded to be shared. But how? How do you tell your Muslim family that you met Jesus? That he wasn't just a prophet, that he is the way? Would they believe me? Or think I'd lost my mind? Would they see me as a traitor, an apostate? My identity, everything I had been, was rooted in my faith, my community, my family's pride. And if I said this aloud, I could lose it all. But Jesus' words echoed in my soul. "Go, Yusuf, share the truth. I will be with you always." So I started small. I called my brother, that same brother who'd driven me to the hospital, who'd held my hand when I couldn't breathe. He answered immediately. "Yusuf, you okay?" "No," I said, voice shaking. I need to tell you something." "What is it?" I hesitated, and then I told him everything. The light, Jesus, race. Every silence fell on the other end. Long, heavy. "Are you saying you believe in Jesus now?" he asked quietly. I breathed in. Yes. His silence hurt more than shouting would have. I don't know what to say," he finally replied. "I love you, but this, I don't understand." "I know," I whispered. "I didn't either." Until I saw him. Over the next weeks, I shared with more people, friends, a mentor, a neighbor I trusted. Some called me deluded. Some prayed for me to come back. Some simply walked away. But others listened. Really listened. They didn't convert, they didn't debate, they just heard. And in their questions, I saw flickers of what I once was. Searching, striving, afraid. So I kept going. One person at a time. One conversation at a time. I wasn't trying to convert anyone. I was trying to tell the truth. That salvation wasn't a transaction. It was a gift. That heaven wasn't for the perfect. It was for the willing. That God wasn't waiting for us to earn his love. He'd already given it. I knew I couldn't hide it forever. I had seen too much, felt too much. Truth, once seen, cannot be unseen. So I did the hardest thing I've ever done. I told my parents. We sat in the living room, the same room where my father taught me the first verses of the Quran, the same floor where my mother prayed every Fajr. I looked into their eyes full of love, of expectation, of trust, and I told them, I believe in Jesus. The silence that followed was deafening. My father's hands trembled. My mother's eyes filled with tears. "Yusuf," my father said, his voice cracking, "how could you say that after everything we've taught you?" "Haven't rejected what you taught me," I said softly. "I've seen it fulfilled. But how could I explain it? How could I describe eternity in a breath? How could I condense love incarnate into a sentence?" They didn't understand. They couldn't. Not yet. My mother cried, my father looked away, and I sat there, grieving the distance that now stretched between us. But I knew this wasn't just for my family. This truth, this gift, had to be shared. So I gathered a small group, friends, Neighbors, a few cousins, curious strangers who had heard whispers of my story. I stood in front of them, terrified, but steady. I told them everything about the light, the warmth, the face of Jesus, about the cross, about grace, about love that I did not deserve but was offered anyway. Some laughed, some argued, some cried, but a few listened. Their eyes didn't move, their lips didn't interrupt. They just listened, and I saw it in their silence. The same questions I once had, the same ache, the same hunger. I didn't have all the answers, but I had one truth. Jesus changed me, not with rules, not with fear, not with reward, but with himself. I lost some people. Some friends never called again. Some family kept their distance. There were whispers, there were warnings, but through it all, there was peace. The kind that doesn't come from being right, but from being held. And then something beautiful happened. I found others who had walked the same lonely road. Former Muslims, curious seekers, silent believers. We gathered in quiet rooms. We shared stories. We prayed together. We cried. And for the first time, I didn't feel alone. Now I live with a mission, not to convert, not to convince, but to invite, to say, there is more. There is love. There is grace, not earned, but given. Looking back, it still feels like a dream, like I stepped through a doorway few get to see and somehow returned. But this dream, it didn't fade. It became my life, my purpose, my truth. For so long I lived trying to be enough to earn favor, enough to reach heaven, enough to silence the fear inside me. But now I know it was never about being enough. It was about being loved. Already, follow eternally. Jesus didn't come to give me a new religion. He came to give me himself, a relationship, a place to belong, a peace that no prayer schedule, no fasting calendar, no external achievement could ever give. I am not perfect. I still stumble. I still doubt. I still weep. But I no longer carry the weight of earning love, because he already carried the weight for me. I still miss my old world sometimes, the comfort of rituals, the familiarity of rules, the pride of being devout. But none of that could compare to knowing Jesus. He walked with me in my darkest hour. He reached for me when I was floating between life and death. He showed me heaven and wept for those in hell. He called me by name, and when I said yes, he gave me new life. So if you're listening and you've ever felt like you're not enough, like you're running but never arriving, like the weight of your sin might be too much to carry, I want you to know you don't have to carry it anymore. There is someone who already carried it for you. There is grace. There is forgiveness. There is love, not the kind that depends on your performance, but the kind that never stops reaching for you, no matter who you are, no matter where you come from, no matter what you've done. I'm not here to argue. I'm here to tell you, Jesus is real, he is alive, and he is waiting for you. If this story stirred something in you, don't ignore it. That's knock. He will answer, because he always does. This is not the end of my story. It's only the beginning.